The CPU chip, as time progresses, will not be able to perform a task as efficiently as it used to. An older chip will have difficulty processing the data due to modern software and applications demanding more computing power, or the operating system taking a lot of resources. Moreover, an overheated processor, dusty heatsink, or multiple heavy applications running in the background are also some of the reasons your CPU does not give the desired performance. In this video, we have gathered a few techniques to increase your CPU performance. However, let us look at why your CPU is performing poorly. What causes poor CPU performance? One particular reason you might see a gradual performance drop is due to dust settled on the heatsink. The CPU heatsink is responsible for absorbing the heat generated from the CPU. The CPU cooler then cools down the heatsink by blowing air into its compartment. Therefore, if you notice any performance dip, check if your heatsink has collected any dust. Windows settings. In the description of this video, I left a link to the file we need. Download and unzip the archive to your desktop. After that, run the first file and allow the changes to be made. This file is needed so that we can import the power scheme. Click Import in the context menu to import the power scheme into your system. After that, open the power supply and apply the imported power circuit. This is a ready-made customized power supply scheme for maximum productivity. Change thermal paste. A CPU with a dried-up thermal paste does a bad job dissipating heat to the heatsink. This results in a rise in the CPU's temperature. Once the CPU's temperature reaches a certain temperature, it lowers the performance to prevent itself from any damage due to extreme heat. This is called thermal throttling. So, if you find that your CPU is not performing as it used to, try changing the thermal paste. Clean the heatsink and the fan. The dust settled on the heatsink traps heat, and the cooling fan won't be able to cool it down. Moreover, when the CPU cooling fan's revolutions per minute also decreases when dust gets settled on its blades. Once dust enters the compartments of the heatsink and the fan, it does a poor job of cooling down the PC. Use a can of compressed air to clean your CPU heatsink and the cooling fan. Overclock the CPU. Overclocking a CPU improves its clock speed and makes it run at a higher speed than originally intended. This will result in overall improved computer performance and increased FPS in games. When you overclock your CPU, you simultaneously increase its clock speed and voltage supplied to it until the system becomes unstable. Let's call this an unstable point. Once it is unstable, it turns off. And now you set the clock speed and voltage below this unstable point. However, one disadvantage to overclocking could be that the CPU will run hotter and the CPU fans will spin at a higher revolutions per minute, creating some noise. Upgrade PC components. If you have a higher-end CPU paired with poor-performing hardware components such as the random access memory or the GPU, you will not be able to utilize the entire CPU's performance. This is called a bottleneck. When your CPU suffers from a bottleneck, it cannot reach its potential due to poor-performing hardware components. Upgrading these components will make your CPU perform better if it suffers from a bottleneck.